Let's talk about Ohtani going to the Dodgers. Reaction.
Not surprising at all. I would have been very surprised. You're hearing a lot of Toronto talk late. Hey, he's getting on a plane. He's not getting on a plane. All that's nonsense. But that's what you hear. I know Toronto was for real. I know their offer was for real, and I don't know whether Otani considered it to get another team in the fray. What it was, whatever the negotiating tactics were, I would have been floored if he went to Canada and played for the Toronto Blue Jays. I said from the beginning, Otani came over here. He had options when he came over from Japan. He was very coveted. He chose the Angels for a reason, whether it's this part of the country, whether it's the weather, whatever it may be. He chose the Angels. So there's something to Southern California for him. Probably lives in Newport Beach, 15-minute drive to the ballpark, beautiful weather year round, probably the closest point to Japan. And Anaheim Stadium is an unbelievable place to play. It was my favorite place to hit. He obviously has had a ton of success and loves that ballpark. Feels like home, loves his teammates. The fans love him, obviously. Well, I think at this point, the fans love him everywhere.
Right.
But that mound, there's something to it. He's had a lot of success off that mound. He's had a lot of success in that batter's box. And as much as the money, yes, the money is definitely a big factor. But when it comes to making that final choice, players are very, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, man, I love hitting there and I love pitching there. And that has something to do with it. In the end, it came down to probably location. He's just going down the freeway a little bit. He can probably remain at home. I don't know what his family situation. If he has kids, he doesn't raise them in that part of the country. And the only thing I think it does is, let's say all the deals were equal, and I don't know because I don't have the intel behind the scenes, but if all the numbers were equal through all the teams, he probably just came down to, I'm going to stay in Southern California. I'm going to go to the Dodgers because the Dodgers have proven year in and year out that they're going to give you the best chance to get to that World Series and win a World Series. And that was probably the deciding factor for him.
Reaction from the Angels' perspective. If you're in that Angels clubhouse, what are you thinking?
Well, um, you don't really get emotional as players. I mean, as players, I hated to see buddies of mine getting traded or gone via free agency, but it's not going to ruin my world. I still have a job to do. I got to get ready for next season. And you can look at it as, oh, woe is me. We lost Otani, which obviously I don't want to cheapen that. That's a huge loss.
Right.
But then think, okay, let's see what this ball club, this organization is going to do for the rest of the winter going forward. Now all of a sudden, it come to find out it was 70 million was the price per year. Well, now the Angels have 70 million that they were probably willing to pay Otani or something close to go out and get some other players. So let's just hope they go do that. And as a player, that's all you can hope is, hey, go get me a big time pitcher, go get me a big time hitter to replace Otani. You've got that Otani money now. You've got two big chunks to get a big time pitcher and a big time hitter. And that's probably what the players, especially Mike Trout, who's the leader of that team, has been face of that organization for a decade now. That's probably what he's thinking.
Okay, so the big question is, Angels, everyone second guessed him. Trade Ohtani at the deadline because you're not going to get anything if he walks. Did they make a mistake?
You heard it. You heard it. Jim Bowden came on this podcast right after the trading deadline. And Ohtani wasn't dealt, and he said that'll be the biggest mistake they make. And I said, Jim, it made me think at the time. He said, Brett, because this is not a playoff caliber team, and he was staunch in his opinion of that.
They wasn't were flirting with it a little bit, but
right. I wasn't as hardcore as Jim was saying for sure they were not a playoff team. I didn't think they really were, but what I've seen in the last few years in this postseason, anything can happen. So I don't rule anything out. But Jim had that foresight, and he said, Booney, this is not a playoff team. Like, it was matter of fact. And you're going to get nothing for him, and you got a really good chance of losing him if you let him go to free agency. Well, all that came to fruition. And Jimmy, my original, my GM, longtime friend, it was a hell of a call.
Let's go back to the Dodgers now. No excuse. I got Ohtani. I went out and spent more money than Ric Flair does on a weekly basis for Ohtani. There is no tomorrow. Is the pressure on the Dodgers? Do they have to win now?
I think the pressure's been on the Dodgers for a while now. They've got one world championship. but year in and year out, they've
An
pretty much.
abbreviated world championship during COVID.
I don't call it abbreviated. It's everybody
I'm a
knew the
Giants
rule.
fan. What do you want from me?
Everybody knew the rules going into that season. Everybody's on an even playing field. You know the rules. You know it's a 60-game schedule. You know what the playoff format was, and the best team won. So I do not cheapen that. There's no asterisk for me.
Okay.
All right, we get that out of the way, or are
Got
we
that out of the way.
okay? I think they kind of have to win, but and from what I hear, they're not done,
Right.
which is amazing. That lineup, you look at the Braves a year ago, unbelievable. You look at the Texas Rangers a year ago, unbelievable as far as offensive prowess. I look at this Dodger team. Wow.
What were they missing?
Because
for
for me,
lot. Hold on.
no. Look at the starting pitching last year. They went down. They didn't have
Right.
their number one in Walker Buehler all year.
Nope.
Clayton Kershaw's 36 years old and was kind of beat up. Was kind of pitching. They were really
Gotcha.
watching his innings.
Urias got in trouble.
The May kid, who's been a big prospect for a long time, he went down again, missed the remainder of the season. Urias had that scandal. They lost him, their best pitcher. And all of a sudden they go into the postseason and you really don't have anybody to hang your hat on
They
from a pitching perspective. Right. And they really weren't hot. They were not hot at the wrong time. They weren't hot at the wrong time. And that was playoff time. And they got whooped pretty early in the playoffs and they were out of there. But Walker Buehler's coming back. We'll see what Kershaw does. He's a free agent. I wouldn't imagine him going anywhere but LA. I don't know what happens with the Urias situation. I'm not privy to it. I haven't even looked into it.
Right.
But I think they're not done spending. They're going to go look for a bona fide starter. They've got a great bullpen. But if you look at that offense.
Did they need the bat, though? That's what I'm asking.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't hurt. I can't imagine. I look around the league. I mean, Judge and Soto are scary. And if Stanton can come back and just be even a shell of what he once was, that's a murderer's row.
Right.
The Braves, obviously, with an Olsen and Acuna, that's pretty nasty. But you've got Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, who, in my opinion, right now, best pure hitter in baseball, Freddie Freeman. Now, I know a lot of Acuna guys out there are going to go Acuna's best. You can make that argument. I'm not saying Acuna isn't. That's why I throw it out there. It's a good debate. Freddie Freeman, for me, is a guy I love to watch hit. He's just a pure hitter. He's going to hit you 25 home runs in the process. But I think he's as good as anybody in the game right now. And then you've got Super Freak, and I say that in a very endearing way, Shohei Ohtani. Those three, and now you're still packing the catcher. What a good player he is. Muncy. Muncy's going to hit you 35 home runs. They're going to be hitting down in the order 6th, 7th. That Dodger lineup is going to be, if everybody's healthy, one of the best modern day lineups we've seen. You got 3 MVPs, legitimate MVPs, year in and year out, going back to back to back. It's going to be pretty awesome to watch. It's a class organization. If they go out and get a starting pitcher, especially a big one, I'm sure they're going to be in on Yamamoto, who I've heard nothing but great things. Let's not rule out that Blake Snell, the current Cy Young Award winner in the National League, he's available. Nothing. I put nothing past the Dodgers on what they may or may not do. They're definitely going to be in the mix.
How does this affect the rest of the National League West? Diamondbacks went to the World Series. They're expecting to continue their success.
See what they do.
Padres, I think, even though they got rid of Soto, still expect to be a postseason team. Giants have Bob Melvin as their manager. Does this change the complexion of the National League West?
I think the Dodgers are definitely the talent, but I still like San Diego. That little trade with Soto and Grisham. You got Brito Vasquez, Higatoshi, a backup catcher for the Yankees, gives them stability. He's a good catcher and he can hit, and he's got some power. He goes to the Padres, but the real good get they got in that Yankee trade was King, the starting pitcher. I would assume the San Diego Padres are not going to retain the services of a Blake Snell. That's a big hole to fill, what he did last year. Musgrove is their horse. Yu Darvish, He's getting a little bit older, but I'll tell you what, that's a pro right there. But this King kid, look for this King kid in that rotation in San Diego. He's going to solidify that rotation. They're going to be really good. They lost Soto. They've still got a ton of talent with Tatis, who I still think's one of the best players, an Acuna type player on that team. You've got Manny Machado, probably going to be a Hall of Famer one day. You've got the shortstop Bogarts. You've got a lot of talent still on that team. Really talented bullpen. Let's see what happens with Josh Hader. It doesn't seem like he's going to come back to the Padres, another big free agent. But I still think the Padres are going to be a team that's got to be reckoned with. I think they're definitely, even right now with no moves being made with this King acquisition, they're a playoff ball club right now.
Reaction to we haven't talked about it. You and I have talked about it on CBS Sports Radio, but let's talk about it here on the podcast. Aaron has another bat to put in his lineup with the New York Yankees. So we talked about the flip side of what it meant to the Padres. Talk about what this means to the New York Yankees.
With the Soto, obviously one of the best hitters in baseball. Still a young man. I think, what is he, 24, 25 years
Right.
old? Best years are ahead of him. I think this was a great fit for New York and for Juan Soto. Juan Soto had a pretty good year. Not a Soto-esque year, but a pretty good year in San Diego. I think a lot of a lot of players would take that year. But things just didn't click for that offense. I don't know what it was. Once again, I know nothing that went on behind the scenes. I have no idea, but it didn't add up. They pitched number 1 or number 2 in the league all year, and that means starting rotation and bullpen. They had that world-class offense and lost and got beat by the Dodgers by 20 games. It doesn't add up. Usually when something like that happens, there's a real disconnect behind the scenes in that clubhouse. I don't know if Juan Soto was a part of it. I do know this. Going to New York, going into that clubhouse, Juan Soto, that's Aaron Judge's team, first and foremost. You've got guys like Giancarlo Stanton there. You've got some Grizzly veterans. You've got a DJ LeMahieu. Torres becoming a veteran at this stage, a Garrett Cole. You've got some real pillars in that clubhouse. Juan Soto, I think, is going to want to come in. It's his walk year. It's a free agent year for him. He wants to have a monster year. I think he's going to mind his P's and Q's. He's going to go there and be the Juan Soto we expect. So, great fit for the New York Yankees. Makes them probably a World Series contender now. We like to play those games. Who's the favorite? Probably the Yankees right now because of that move. But I think not great for him to stay in San Diego, if that makes sense. I just don't think the chemistry, the dynamic in the two clubhouses are so much of a difference. Juan Soto is going to be great in New York, and I don't think that great in San Diego. Definitely was a great move for both ball clubs.
What's it like when you are a rent-a-player on one side for an organization?
Never been one. We got to have Ricky Henderson on, and we got to ask him.
Or
David Cohn.
When you're auditioning. I mean, you've seen guys before, right? Last year, free agent. They're going to post everything they can. The better the numbers, the more money they're going to make.
Right. And depends who you are. I've seen guys that they don't do so good in those situations.
Right. So have I.
And I've seen guys that overachieve in those situations. So it's going to be fun to watch. I don't know if the Yankees are planning on, to me, without really getting into it, this trade on the surface looks to me like we're going to trade for you. I don't know if we're going to sign you long term. We're going for it in 2024. And we got Juan Soto in a walk year. He's going to be as motivated as he possibly can be. And we're all in and we're going for it. Whether he's going to stay there and sign a long-term deal with the Yankees, I know nothing's been announced now. I don't think they're talking right now. So I think this is a trade. Let's go for it. Plan on it being a one-year deal. And if it's more than that, well, then it works out. But that's what I think it is right now. For Juan Soto, this is a change. He's such a good, disciplined hitter. He's so fundamentally sound that his natural ability is going to take over. I don't think he's going to put too much pressure on himself. He's been there, done that before. He's had MVP years before. This is a guy when he was coming up and he was 19 years old, he was just mature beyond his years. I mean, he had a two-strike approach when he was 19 and in this day and age, which is very rare. And I knew right then and there, this guy's got something that the average young player coming up doesn't have. So I expect Juan Soto to go out and have a great year for the Yankees, and we'll see if they pitch enough.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you as a player, Juan Soto's got to be the happiest guy in the world. He's going to the New York Yankees. They're in it to win it, right? He's going to play for your brother. But Shohei Ohtani just made $700 million. I know $68 million of it is being reported as deferred, but it's still $70 million a year. So if Shohei is going to set this, what's the player reaction? Because listen, nobody else is going to get Shohei money anytime soon. Maybe I'm
Well,
wrong.
there's only one Shohei,
But there's
so
only one Shohei. But if
right.
but that rising tide lifts all the boats. So if Shohei's worth this,
without a doubt.
that means everybody else, including Juan Soto, they just inflated the market for players, inflated the salaries. Soto's going to cash in even more than he would have before the deal.
Right, because now all of a sudden it's $700 million. Okay, basically it's $35 million a year because Ohtani is two players.
Okay,
he will be after this year. He's a bona fide number.
Interesting.
He's a bona fide number one starter, and he's a bona fide middle of the lineup MVP caliber type offensive player as well. So he's two players. Let's say he makes $35 million a year each side of him. We've never seen it before. Nobody can compare to this. I don't care how great of a player you are. Nobody can do currently what Ohtani's doing. That's why he's different. He's above everybody because of his versatility and because he can play quarterback and defensive back in the same game.
Whoa,
nobody
Bret Boone dropping football references.
Yeah, which I know nothing about, but nobody has ever done that. So that's why his number's so high. But to your point, that $700 million, you're right. Now all of a sudden $400 million doesn't look like that huge number used to look. All the players under him, from utility player, the 26th man on the roster, down to up to the superstars, should be applauding what Ohtani just did because he raised the bar for It's like Craig Counsell. We had this thing this offseason where Counsell went to the Cubs, got the highest deal ever in the history of managing. And everybody says, whoa, how it went down, this and that. Argue what you want, but managers around the league and future would-be wannabe managers look at that and go, wow, he just raised the bar. So it's like anything in life. He just raised the bar, and it'll be interesting to see. It's interesting because, and you'd probably know more about this than me, what Shohei brings to the table financially before he even steps in the batter's box. He's such a unique player being from Japan. Japan's number one star. I saw it with Ichiro. Ichiro came over, and at the time, Ichiro was the biggest thing in Japan. He was the greatest. Before him, it was Hideo Nomo and Sadahara O, if you're going way back. But what Shohei, I think, is taking it to a different level. Shohei mania. Just Ichiro was huge. He was huge in Japan, obviously huge in Seattle. He was the talk of the league when he first came in. But I didn't see him having this broad of appeal at Shohei Ohtani. I think if you're not a baseball fan and you're in a city and somebody says, hey, we got tickets and Shohei Ohtani's going to be there. Well, I'm going. I got to see that. That's when you've kind of jumped the shark. Right. When somebody who could care less about baseball wants to go to the game because they've got to see what you've got to offer. I'll tell you what, he's that good of a player.